it's not the talk itself that's important. It's what's going on in the situation. It's the whole situation. We focus on only the words that we're talking about, only the conversation at hand, the thing that's right in between the two of us, the information that's being exchanged. But that little piece of information that's being exchanged verbally between two people, that's a tiny bit of the interaction. Because interaction is actually all about this: who am I? And who are you? And how are we connecting in this moment on a way that's above words? And what does it mean if you're telling me about your dog, or you're telling me about your little kid, or you're telling me about work? Even though the topic of work to me sounds boring, what is it about you talking about it that allows me to get a bigger picture of who you are? What's your emotional connection to the words that you're saying? Why are you saying the things that you're saying? See, that's what I'm interested in. That's what I'm curious about. So when I kind of get into that, and I'm understanding, okay, she's saying this, well, why is she saying that? Or he's saying that, or he's talking about sports. Well, what's his interest in sports? What's the way in which he's talking about it? Is he really passionate about it? Is he really excited about it? Is he kind of frustrated about it? Is it something that, it's so to me, if somebody starts talking about sports, I'll ask them where they're interested in. I'm not really interested in sports. I don't care about the factual stuff behind sports. But I'll ask, where did his interest in sports come from? Has he always been like a St. Louis Rams fan since he was a little kid? Is he from St. Louis or something? Maybe his dad's from St. Louis, his family's from there. Who knows? Maybe he just likes the mascot. Maybe he has a really funny story about somehow his best friend was a St. Louis Rams fan, and then he's always been one. So you can kind of easily get out of this the small talk frame by being interested in who the person is and asking yourself what the person's telling you about who they are, not what the person's telling you about the information, not what information they're sharing with you, but what they're telling you about who they are as a person, what they're telling you about what their thoughts are, what their beliefs are, what their emotions are. This is going to be with guys or girls, obviously, but situations obviously going to mostly come up with women, where you're interested in the person, but you're not interested in what she's saying, right? So the funny thing is that it's right in front of you. You say, well, I really want to talk to this girl. I'm really interested in her as a person. I'm interested in this woman. I want to connect with her. But the thing she's talking about is not interesting to me. Well, it's right there in front of you. But like I said in the beginning, it's purposeful ignorance that you're engaging in. You're saying that small talk is not interesting to me. These topics are not interesting to me. And this little group of topics here, that is interesting to me. So this is the things that I want to talk about over here. What you're doing is you're ignoring the reality of the situation. The situation has nothing to do with what you think is interesting, what you think is not interesting. That's irrelevant. That's all that's going on in your head. What's relevant is what's happening right now. What's relevant is not the words that you're exchanging with her. What's relevant is who she is as a person communicating to you right now. So listen to the words that she's saying. Listen to every word that she says. But also look at what's right in front of you. Look at the person who's saying it. Look at why she's saying it. Feel it out. Feel it right here. Feel it in your mind, feel it in your heart, and really get a sense for the full picture. What she's saying to you, how is that triggering in your head? How is that triggering in your mind? And what do you want to say in that moment? What are you interested in that moment? Are you interested in her? If you're not interested in the things that she's talking about, and if so, move the conversation away from the things that you don't want to talk about and say, that's interesting, you said this. Now tell me a little bit more about you, about who you are. Why did you say that? What's your attachment to that? What's the story behind that? What was the what inspired you to tell me that story? What inspired you to get whatever it is that the conversation was about? So what I ask myself is, who's this person who's telling me this? Why are they telling me this? What's their inspiration for saying it? What's their motivation for saying it? What's the story behind this person and the conversation that I'm having right now? And when I open up to that, and I open up to that kind of a curiosity, that's when that kind of higher level connection starts happening. That's when you communicate who you are on a higher level, because it's, like we said, the information that's being exchanged, but it's also who we are that's kind of inextricably intertwined with the way that we're communicating. Because communication is not just the information, it's actually the person conveying the information. So if we can grasp that, get the whole picture of what's going on, and really get into understanding that these aren't the words that this person's telling you, they're actually telling you about who they are. That's the power of small talk. That's the true value of small talk. So shift your focus, shift your attention, your appreciation of the person from like this little really zoomed in focus to something a little bit wider. Widen your perspective. Because what you do is you constrict it like this, so you're saying, I can only talk about this one thing that's really important. You're like a little pinhole, right? And you're trying to look through this pinhole and try to understand this other person through this tiny little pinhole. But you don't have to do that. You're ignoring everything else. That could be you widen your perspective a little bit and you say, okay, it's not just the content. It's not really all about me. It's not really all about what I think is important to talk about. It's not really what I think is worth my time to talk about. It's actually, what I'm actually after is connecting with this person in this moment. So widen that perspective up, and you'll start seeing that your connections with other people will really start to develop. They'll really start getting a lot richer because you've stopped focusing on this stuff. You've stopped focusing on what you think is important right now for you, and you've shifted that around. And you've shifted around from what you think is important just for you to gain knowledge, for this moment to be worth your time, and you start seeing that every moment is worth your time. And every moment is going to happen, whether you want to be in that situation or not. So you may as well open up to that and see that the reason you're here right now talking to somebody, the reason you're here talking to me or talking to anybody else you're engaging in small talk with, is to connect with that person, to find out who that person is, and to share who you are as a person. And then you start having real chemistry. Then you start having a real connection with another woman, with another man. It doesn't matter. That's where real connection is. It's under the words. It's above the words. It's everything else that's not just the words. Chemistry doesn't necessarily happen in your personal interests and your personal activities. That's part of it. But much more importantly, it's something that's above that. It's how you express yourself. It's how you relate to the world. It's your kind of like your emotional connection to your own life.